Indigenous people are lazy, they want handouts. Most of all, they don't want to leave their reserve. Why? Because they're lazy. Clayton, if you're going to be racist and wrong, I probably wouldn't use your first name with a photo of yourself, and I wouldn't be so loud about it. Indigenous people were not considered people until 1951. Prior to that, a person legally in Canada was defined as any person who wasn't Indian. In Canada, if you wanted to go to university, you had to give up the fact that you were Indigenous. You had to give up your family, your culture, your heritage. You weren't allowed to live on reserve land if you wanted to go to school. If you were an Indigenous woman and you married a white man, you had to give up your status. You were no longer considered an Indigenous person. Men who went to go fight in World War I, World War II, so veterans, came back to find out that they lost their status. They were no longer considered Indigenous people. Indigenous people were not allowed to vote until 1960. The government gave Indigenous people pieces of land to farm on, and the pieces of land they were given were not suitable for farming. Think swamps. Not only this, but the Indian agents that were assigned to look over reserves and give permission for Indigenous people to come and go. Because yes, you could not leave the reserve without a piece of paper stating how long you were going to be gone for, what your purpose for leaving was. You had to travel to go to that Indian agent's house, and you didn't know if he was going to be there or not. So if he wasn't there, you'd have to wait days and then seek permission to leave the reserve. And if you did not seek his permission, you left anyways, because this was not lawful, this was not legal. If you left anyways, they would take away your privileges to go see your children at the schools. The schools where they're not schools. They were assimilation prisons. They would put children in against the wishes of the parents without their consent. You would steal them and say you were good at farming and you were doing well at it. You weren't allowed to sell your crops without permission from the Indian agent. You couldn't even give it as a gift. That wasn't repealed until 2014. Alcohol consumption by Indigenous people. It was actually a federal crime at one point for you to sell alcohol to an Indigenous person. Then it became a crime for Indigenous people to have alcohol in their possession and punishable by prison time. Indigenous people were not allowed to wear any of their traditional garb, jingle dresses, headdresses, any of it. Not allowed to have powwows. Not allowed actually to go in pools with white people. In 1921, 45 people were arrested and 22 people were jailed for dancing and giving each other gifts. If you were caught speaking your language at the schools, they would pierce your tongue with a sewing needle. If you were handicapped, or if you were an orphan, or if you were a widow, the government would just take your land because they felt like you weren't going to use it the way that they wanted to. In 1927, the government banned Indigenous people from forming political groups. They also banned and made it illegal for Indigenous people to seek out lawyers or pay lawyers. They made it illegal for you to give them money to do so.